Welcome to the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Doby. Join Jason as he explores the many ways to unlock personal growth, mindfulness, and spiritual transformation. So now, please welcome the host of Transformative Pathways, Jason Doby.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jason Doby, founder of Transformative Pathways Life Coaching. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I'll be discussing mindfulness, finding calm in a busy mind, with our guest, Mr. George Lourenco, who is joining us today from New Jersey. George grew up in the 80s, believing in the American dream and the idea that following the rules would lead to success. But over time, he realized his mindset often led him to sacrifice his own truth. As a father of two, George's journey towards self-discovery began when he took responsibility for his health, sparking a deeper commitment to personal growth. With over 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry and a black belt in Taekwondo, George is now at a crossroads, navigating challenges and rediscovering what truly aligns with him, with coaching others on their journey being one of those callings. George, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure.
Awesome, man. It's so great to see you again, bro.
Same here. Same here. It's been a while.
Awesome, man. Well, to start things off, do you want to share a little bit about your personal story and how you went from working in the pharmaceutical industry to becoming a transformational life coach?
So, like the bio says, grew up, my family immigrated here from Portugal, and basically just living that lifestyle of, hard work, paying off and getting things done and so forth. And just kind of built my whole identity around that, following the rules, getting things done and so forth. And so it just evolved and just followed some of my truths, so to speak. Followed into science. I was always really into science. Got into the pharmaceutical industry as a chemist, and I did some IT work, and that's really where I've been. And but along the way, I've always been really keen on helping people. So it's always been about like helping others and helping them find their way. Whether it was, I'm getting a call from somebody in maintenance who's having an issue in another lab, and they're asking for just a question like, "Hey, I don't want to sound dumb when I'm talking to these people. Can you help me out?" or something like that. And or even like when the interns come in, I'm actually very particular to whenever we have interns that work for us, because I know how important an internship can be, because that's how I got into the industry. If it hadn't been for the internship, I probably would have had to take another route. So
Right.
it was just always that idea of helping, and just being of assistance and serving in some way. And so somebody just mentioned, "Man, you sound like you could be a coach." And this was about 7 years ago. And so I've been doing coaching for a while. I got formally certified last year, but that's really how it kind of just went that way. And honestly, I'm always looking to try to get the best out of people for themselves. I'm always looking, if there's a question that they have or an issue that they have, the more I know them, the more I can see how to, I can give them the answer, but also say, "Hey, what if," and add a little more to it to see if it just empowers them more or makes them feel better. And it's just about trying to help that blossoming come from people, and just seeing that look on people's face when they're like, "Oh yeah."
That's amazing. And I really love how you said you want to get the best out of people. When I was a chef, that was always my philosophy. That was always my management style, getting the best out of everyone, and how you have to, almost treat people differently because everyone is unique. So the way I'm going to talk to this person is going to be different than the way I talk to this person, because everyone is unique. And I just love how you said that, because that was always my goal, to try to bring out the best in everyone. I love that. That's so important.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, man. And on the topic of mindfulness, so I'm just curious, like, how did you get into mindfulness? How did you discover the mindfulness practice on your journey?
So along the way, trying to be successful, trying to balance family, trying to balance everything, read a lot of different books about improving yourself, and one in particular was I can't recall the author offhand at the moment, but it was a book I think literally called "Quiet Your Mind," and that it kind of introduced me into the topic. And so I really started to focus on meditation, and I had a really good run of years of just okay meditation, feeling good, feeling great. And then as I moved forward, started having more trouble, and it coincided with some added stress in my life with different things, my aging parents, and all the collateral effort that comes with that, and helping them navigate their later years and so forth. And um and so, like, it became a challenge again, and then having to really work through that challenge and really just try to find a way to that mindfulness, to that point of being able to just take that time and to really just like dive into yourself, and just be present and just be in that moment and not worry about anything else. And it was just really the whole idea of just feeling all this stress and saying, you know what, this might help. And it did in that first period. And then kind of things happen, like I said, and finally found my way back to it.
That's beautiful. And yeah, mindfulness is one of my favorite topics as well. Practicing meditation for a long time. And what would you say? How would you explain mindfulness to someone? You kind of did there, but if you were to describe what mindfulness is to someone, how would you describe it?
I describe it essentially the way I try to describe it is the ultimate goal is to feel just so at peace in that moment that it's just great. Doesn't have to feel blissful, doesn't have to feel, like otherworldly. It just has to feel good. And it gives you that calm and that relaxation. Um but I always say that that's the ultimate goal because what I try to explain to people, it's a practice,
Hmm.
and it's like any other practice that you develop, or even any other muscle. Some people will use the analogy to muscles, and it's like you got to work at it sometimes. And so it's just the idea, really, mindfulness for me has become more just the idea of giving yourself that space to get to that goal or try to get to that goal. So it's just
Right.
trying to give yourself your time for you, and nothing else matters in that moment. It's just that's why you limit the noises, you limit the distractions, you turn off the phone, put it in another room, whatever you have to do, but you are taking this time for yourself. Like for me, that's where the mindfulness, that's my focus, let's say, for where I try to put people in touch with mindfulness, and with their, and like you said, in my bio about my background of trying to get them to also help them with their truth in that way as well.
Right. I love that. And for someone that's having a difficult situation, you talked about like positive emotions and stuff there, but what about someone working through some negative emotions or difficult times in their life? How can mindfulness help those people in those situations?
It's basically the opportunity to detach. It's the opportunity to have that time, and not even, and sometimes even not feel guilty to detach, to just be able to understand, no, this is my time. And I'm not taking away from helping mom and dad with, finding a doctor for this issue. And I'm not taking away from, Junior, or the baby, because they're fine, they're asleep, and everything is okay. And it's really just when you're dealing with the negative emotions, it just allows you also a space to, when you do detach, and when you do kind of sink into yourself, it sometimes even allows you just to get some clarity on what's bringing you that negative emotion,
Mhm.
what's come, like it'll just give you like that ability to baseline yourself, and hopefully, in best case scenario, take a step back from it all in that detachment. And then when you're back into the situation, when you open your eyes and you just see the world around you, and it's like, oh, I gotta go to the bed. Oh, I hear this. Oh, the phone's ringing. Oh, it's almost time to make coffee. Gotta get breakfast going. You at least have that distance where you were detached enough that maybe if you're like, you know what, breakfast can wait 5 minutes. Let me go take care of the baby. Let me give a little extra time to the baby today, or to helping brush Junior's teeth, or whatever the case is. And it's just there's a lot of opportunity essentially to help work through and understand what's going on. um, and then sometimes even it doesn't help, but that outcome of doing it, not feeling the help, can also be helpful if you can understand what that might mean, and or maybe talking to somebody, if you don't, talking to someone who might be able to help you understand, well, okay, so you're feeling even worse when you do it, let's talk about it and figuring it out. And I say that coming obviously from a coach's perspective, but also from a personal perspective, having my therapist work with me on those cases where, I was dealing with all this stress and dealing with all these negative emotions, but there was more coming up. So what does that mean? I thought this was supposed to keep me even keel. I thought this was supposed to. So it's just what there's more there. There's a truth there. There's something else there that it's just not jiving for you, for lack of a better term. It's just not working well for you. Whatever, not just the fact that things are making you negative. There's even more about the situation that might be just bringing up that negativity for you.
Hmm. I love that. And when you say to detach, what exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about like not letting that emotion kind of take over? Is that what you sort of mean? What exactly do you mean by that, by saying detach?
So when I try to help myself and others with their mindfulness practice, it's basically just trying to leave all that behind, so to speak. And it's not always easy, and it sometimes takes some practice. And different people say, okay, focus on your breath, focus on the white noise in the background, focus on the air conditioner, turn on a white noise generator. But it's the idea that you essentially just turn in and focus on the quiet of your mind, or something like something that's not triggering for you is essentially what the point is. Something that's not initiating any kind of response, positive or negative, and you're just kind of giving yourself that space just for a little bit of clarity. And some people think, oh, that's what sleep's for. But sleep is great, and it has a lot of great physiological um, components to it and a lot of regenerative properties to it. But being able to give yourself that peace while awake is also building that a bit more resiliency to not let certain things get to you either. But so essentially, the detachment is just being able to leave it there, like not identify with it. Some people say, okay, don't identify a lot. Drop the identification with the bills, with your debt, or with the car needing repairs. No, you can leave. You can have all that, but you're the focus. So step away from that and just come into yourself. And that's where the ones I do like to is like feel your toes, feel your
Mhm.
fingers, feel what's in between your fingernails and your skin. What is that? Can you feel that? And it's like, what the heck are you talking about? But it takes you out of all those other thoughts, and it's like, okay, what is that? I don't know what he's talking about. But it's just that whole idea of giving yourself a break from that, and but focusing on what you're feeling, where you're at, taking it almost, we're getting a little bit away from the whole idea of just the detachment, but it also helps you like kind of take the temperature of yourself, so to speak.
Right. No, I love that. And you answered my next question. I was going to ask you, how do you detach? But you mentioned kind of like going within, going into your body, focusing on your body. And I was going to say that's one technique that I use because I have a super busy mind. It goes at like a million miles an hour. There's a million things going on, and that's never going to stop. But that one technique I like to do is just going into my body. Like you said, I bring my awareness from my thoughts into my body, whatever that is, whether it's my feet or feeling my body or my whole body or my fingertips or something like
Hmm.
that. Yeah, so that's really cool. And I think I guess practicing like body scan meditation, that might be helpful for people too that have never, that don't really know what we're talking about. So that
Yes.
might be that might be a good way for people to practice. For you people out there, look up a body scan meditation. It's a great way to bring your awareness to different parts of your body, which is super cool. And I just noticed here, George, we got a comment from one of our listeners, and they said it's hard to keep reminding yourself to be mindful, and that is true. Sometimes it is hard, and we do forget to be mindful. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice on that topic.
Stop worrying about being mindful. That's my best advice. Just focus on working on the mindfulness. Just focus on when you do get it right, and it'll eventually creep in. Um, But again, I'm also saying that from a perspective similar to you, Jason, where my mind's always working, my mind's always churning. So it's not just that I notice, okay, the computer screen, and then I can see myself, I can see you, I can see outside the window, I can see this, I can see that, and I can process all that. Like, it's like I'm focused here on the call, but if in my normal day to day, I could actually be noticing everything, and then like have an interaction. Oh, I wasn't mindful there while I'm noticing all the other things, and let me turn down the radio and do this, do that. And all that it does is it adds more stress. I feel like it just adds more stress and adds more to that churn and adds more to that pressure on yourself to be mindful, that you actually end up detaching from the mindfulness, or distracting yourself out of mindfulness because you're looking to do it. So for me, it's just practice it where you can, take extra time. There's different apps that, like, there's those meditations that we talked about. I used a lot of those in that difficult time just to help center me and everything. There's apps with reminders. There's alarms you can just set on your phone, and phones allow you to set multiple alarms. People do it all the time. You can even take, like, if you have a electronic device and it reminds you to stand up at the end of 50 minutes of the hour. You can also take that time to stand up and just take that mindful breath. Close your eyes, feel your toes, wiggle your toes, feel your toes, see if your feet are cold, see if they're not. Mine are a little chilly. So, okay, good. I just sank in. And it's just that whole idea. And you can even hear in the change in my cadence right now, I actually did kind of just jump in. So it is tough. And that the greatest thing to do there is just accept that. Yeah, it's tough. And you'll get better with time, and it will come. It will come, especially if that is a goal of yours and you're taking strides to do that. And there are going to be moments where you're slamming the brakes really hard because somebody's just cut in front of you, and you got to swerve to the shoulders to avoid an accident, and you start cursing and screaming. Oh, I wasn't mindful in that time. Who's going to be mindful in that time? You've got all these other things coming up for you. So it's like, okay, let it go, and just keep being mindful where you can. And it's just that practice will come. And it's like something that just hit me. It's almost like that idea of, if you watch a show for a while and the show is, say, in a different dialect of English. So, here in New Jersey in America, and I start watching a show in Australia, I might start picking up some slang, some Australian slang, right? So I'm starting to pick. It's the same thing with mindfulness. If I keep at it, and if I keep working on it, it'll come into my life. It will add to my life, and I'll start seeing those extensions of time where it's like, wow, and it might take a while. It's not a linear line, and it's not just like some people say, oh, learning curves are actually like they just go up and down, but you always go up. No, sometimes it's incremental, and then you hit a plateau. And I remember when I started getting the compliments even from my wife, like, wow, you seem not to be getting so reactive. You seem much calmer lately. But I had been working on it for years. But
Mhm.
finally, it started showing up more and more, and I'm still not 100% there, but it's getting noticeable. So it's just drop it, and just keep going with it, and just make it a part of your life where you can.
Absolutely. And I think the coolest thing about practicing mindfulness is there's always an opportunity to practice throughout your day. Even
Hmm.
if, even if, you say, oh man, I wasn't mindful there, but then you were just mindful that you weren't being mindful. So now you're being mindful of not being mindful, and that's being mindful.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be different for everyone. I like what you said about, setting reminders. I've heard of people doing that, setting reminders, or people will put sticky notes on their mirrors in different parts, different rooms in their house, to breathe or be mindful or whatever. And I know for me, I took a mindfulness class a long time ago when I first got sober, and that's where I discovered meditation and all this stuff. And I used to do a few. I'm going to share a few tricks that I used to do, and one of them was like, when I got out of my car and I walked to work, like that walk, I would always practice being mindful, for that walk. Um, Another one I just thought of is, in my basement, I have a really nice like carpet, and I love the feeling of my feet on the carpet. And then just over time, I'm mindful of that feeling. So now every time I go in my basement and my feet hit that carpet, boom, it's like, it brings me
Hmm.
back to that mindful moment. I just love it. I just do like a little walking meditation or whatever. But especially, being a parent too, there's so many opportunities to
Mm-hmm.
practice. And that's the cool thing. I actually just made a reel about this that I'm going to post this week. Um, there's so many opportunities to practice in our day. Then it gets, kind of fun. You look at those difficult situations and you say, okay, tonight I'm going to be better. I'm going to be more intentional. I'm going to be mindful. A big one for me was bedtime, because bedtime's always crazy. How old are your kids, George? Your kids are a little bit older?
Yeah, middle school and junior in high school.
Okay, so you're past the crazy stuff that I'm going through right now. My kids are a little bit younger, but bedtime was the time that I kind of focused my practice on, because I went from a couple years ago to like punching the walls, like not punching holes in my walls, but getting so mad. It's like I'm a pretty calm
Mm-hmm.
guy. I'm getting mad and I'm punching walls and I'm stomping my feet and my kids are pushing me to the limit. But I use that as my practice, that I was going to be less reactive. And it did take a while, but now I'm at the point now where it's like anything could be happening and I just kind of stay calm.
Mm-hmm.
And a funny thing, sorry for just rambling here, a funny thing I just thought of, I practiced this at one point too. Whenever my kids would do something, I would just look at them and I would just say, thank you. Thank you for helping me practice. I forget exactly what I said, but thank you for helping me control my anger today. Thank you for helping me practice controlling my anger. Sounds kind of silly now, but yeah, I've definitely come a long way. But I'm not saying I'm perfect. I still have my moments where I got to kind of tag out the wife and say, I got to go take a breath and I'll be back in a minute. But that's also being mindful that I'm about to lose my shit, so it's time for me to go for a walk and come back.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because when you start doing things like that, I remember once saying something to that effect of, like you were talking about, thank you for helping me be calm, where it was almost like they were almost taken aback, because it was a case where, it's just natural for kids of all ages, and at the different ages, it's the different level of intensity of pushing buttons, because they're testing boundaries. They're learning, where is the boundary and where do I need to stay, and that's the whole point of what they're doing. And saying something like that, and they're just like, "Oh, damn! I thought I was pushing you further, but you're actually back." It's like, you at least that's the sense you get from their look, because then all of a sudden they're just like, okay, for whatever, move on. So like that's how I processed it. But yeah, that's actually, it can actually serve two purposes: one, helping you practice that mindfulness, and two, breaking them a little bit out of uh, whatever it is their goal is, giving them a second to be mindful actually in that moment, and just be like, what just happened? He's actually calm. And then, excuse me. And then all of a sudden, you know things change. But like you said, you get that moment in there of that mindfulness in that second there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had this same sort of experience with my daughter when when I started saying that to her, and she just looked at me like, "What is this guy on?" Like, just hilarious. It's so fun when you
Yeah.
can do that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Another cool thing about mindfulness that I want to talk about is the impact it can have on our health and our nervous system too, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're anything like me, I had a really stressful job for a lot of my life. So I was living in fight or flight mode for probably 15, 20 years, waking up in the middle of the night, having panic attacks and, all that stuff, which is not good for your health. But I would imagine that mindfulness, like I'm not a doctor here, I don't have any scientific studies with me, but I would imagine that mindfulness would be beneficial for your health, because it does help you calm your mind and get out of that fight or flight mode into a more relaxed mode. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, 100%. And there's actually a lot. I have a lot of thoughts on that. So if
Well,
you need to interject, please do. Because I may go on a tangent, like I could go on tangents of tangents.
do
But
it.
um essentially, what I like to call myself, that period, that tough period. Oh, I was doing mindfulness, it was great, then everything got tough. During that tougher time, and even before that, the mindfulness was helping me start to work through it, but the tough time pushed me more and deeper into that fight or flight response, that fear based reaction in the body. And I essentially, the way I describe it, to just kind of help give it that physiological scientific relationship, is I became a cortisol addict. Now, cortisol is a helpful body chemical that will, you need it to break down bad muscles and help you build new muscles, but constantly having those high levels is a problem. And actually, when I was going through a lot of those stressful years, I did go to a homeopathic doctor, and one of the tests was to do a saliva test throughout I had a bunch of tubes at different times, and she's like, my God, your cortisol levels, I've never seen anything like this. You've got to change that, man. Like literally, that's how she spoke. She's like, you got to change that, man. This is not good. And I was just like, wow. So and then what I found was, even as I was getting better in my mindfulness, I would wake up even after the stressful situations went away. I would be waking up in those panic attacks. It was almost like, and then I would look. It's like, Jesus, it's right at 3:30 every night.
Mhm.
How is that so timed perfectly? And it's just that habit that the body got into as well. So you really get into it, into the way that your nervous system just starts to say, okay, this is our norm, because this is what's happening so often, because we're living high stress all the time. And I notice even my cadence is getting a little quicker, and I don't want to get too talk too fast, because I don't want to distract from the content, because ultimately those habits of it, I call them habits because it helps me as I'm working through and getting over these panic attacks and all that stress and being more mindful. Different people might attach it to different words, but essentially it's such a routine for your body to be like that. That mindfulness does give you that break, because in that moment you're not necessarily amping it up. Like, you might be in that fight or flight response, be trying to feel your toes and feel that relief, but you're still like, that doesn't suddenly disintegrate cortisol in your body. That doesn't completely undo all the negative stress reactions in your body, but it helps your mind be like, okay, but we were able to be calm for that moment. It's that little muscle, it's that little spot that you want to work out. And every time you're mindful, you just make that bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually you'll crescendo over to a point where maybe you'll not be as stressed, and that'll change physiologically speaking. And it's and the big point for me that I try to, especially when I'm working with folks who are very much what being one, I'll say the term, some people may find it not pleasant to hear, but overthinkers. You know,
Mhm.
being an overthinker, you really do get addicted, because you're basically trying to hack your brain to be able to process that thing faster, this situation faster. So you integrate so much into your entire nervous system. And the thing about, when we talk about nervous system, we're not just talking about your nerves, and we're not just talking about motor nerves and sensory nerves, and we're also talking about your muscles. We're talking about your heart. All this data came out not many years ago that was like groundbreaking in many ways, but starts to make sense. We have not necessarily brain cells throughout our body, but we have cells that are similar to neurons. They are neurological cells. So they are there is more going on when we talk about the nervous system. So much of your body is used to that level of stress hormone, that level of adrenaline, that level of this and that, and that level of anxiety, so that sometimes even when you do step out of it, you still feel that ramp up. So that but staying true to the mindfulness, even in the face of that, knowing, okay, it's not working, but it's okay, I'm going to just keep going. It will eventually help. It's similar to folks who go to the gym. There are days where you're going. There's a year where you're just cranking out. You're getting the gains. You're getting the results. That you keep adding more plates to the bar, and then a month comes that you go to hit your norm, and it's like, wow, this feels like a max, but this is my working set. This isn't my max set. And you're just like, oh my God, what do I got to do? Da, da, da. And, and even if you are a person who takes deload weeks, which is basically in fitness, is you work for, say, 3 months and take a couple weeks off, or you work 6 weeks, take a week off, but you always give yourself a break from the heaviness just to let your body recover. And you could still be doing that and still hit that state. And I say that from personal experience. I was working on my deadlift and it was going great. And then all of a sudden it's like, I used to be able to do multiple reps of this. I can only do one. But I didn't stop all of a sudden, like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this workout stuff. I'm done with this mindfulness cry. No, I kept going at it. And that's really what you have to do with the mindfulness. A lot of people I've found, a lot of my clients, like, yeah, I tried it, but it didn't work. And I try to give them analogies like I was just talking about with the gym and everything, because something happened to your nervous system, something happened to your muscular system, something happened to you. So take the step back Take the fact that you're not as mindful as you were or as strong as you were, and just work from there now. That's it. That's where you are. And let's just go from there. Let's try some other different techniques, different ways. We were talking about, feeling in your feet, body scan meditations. Sometimes for some people, especially if they love to hear music, it could be YouTube videos of singing bowls at a particular frequency that kind of just helps them all of a sudden. Just like for some people, it makes the hair on the back of their neck stand up, and they just, oh my God, that's so good. And they're able to get that mindfulness. There's so many different ways.
Mhm.
And you just got to keep trying those different ways. And so when you hit those difficulties, you just have to understand, no, this is definitely good. I just have to try a different approach. And it could become part of your frustration in your life at that moment, but that's okay. But you'll get through it. You will. And you can, but it is so important because of all the things that I just described, and that habit, and just under but and that's one of the keys that I try to tell people. Listen, your truth right now is that your nervous system is so used to it. Your nervous system is so jacked for negativity, and it's not your fault. It's just the best you could do. Now we're going to work on things to help you get to the other side, and then, with the mindfulness especially, and just try to give it that frame of, it's not the cure, but it is the way to the better peace.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great point. And for someone like myself who was a very negative person for most of my life, I can say that it does take a lot of practice to kind of rewire your brain, but you can rewire your brain. That thing that we were told when we were kids, that, you only have so many brain cells, and when they're gone, they're gone. And when you reach this age, then your brain's fully developed. And, now there's science is saying that is false, and you can rewire your brain and make new neural pathways. And the more you use, then if you stop using those negative ones, then they're going to slowly go away. But if the grooves are really deep, like for myself, like 40 years of thinking a certain way, then I can say for myself that after a couple years of really practicing looking at my thoughts, I still deal with negative thoughts. And I think we're always going to have negative thoughts, but it's just being mindful of them and reframing them. And you know all those thoughts that come into your mind are just, they're suggestions, and you don't have to act on every single thought that comes into your mind. And you ultimately, through the practice of mindfulness, you get that space where then you get to choose what you do. you know I get messed up thoughts all the time, like, where did that thought come from? If I acted on every thought I had, I would probably be in jail. But
Hmm.
um, the other interesting thing, you said you wake up at 3:30 a.m. every morning. I also had that same experience working, and I still wake up at like three in the morning every night, which is very interesting.
Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, I can finally say I'm finally getting a full night's sleep. Not necessarily all the hours I want, but a bigger chunk than, like 3 and then 3 and then 3, like I was at one point. But yeah, it is crazy. And I actually looked it up, and there's a lot of different possible spiritual meanings about it. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
I went down that rabbit hole as well too. I did. Yeah, another interesting thing that I wanted to mention was I heard something recently. I don't know where I heard it, and again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just saying stuff here that, you said that every cell in our body has a brain, or so to speak. We have whatever trillions of cells in our body or whatever. And I heard something that was kind of interesting, that every thought we have is interacting with every cell in our body. So our thoughts are impacting our whole body as a whole, which is kind of wild to think of, because we think of our body as this one solid thing, right?
hmm
It's
hmm
this thing, but really, if you break it down, it's like an ecosystem of trillions of all these little things, and they're all kind of, doing their own thing. I don't want to get too deep into it, but I guess the point I'm trying to say is, that have changing your thoughts and shifting your things to a more positive thought does have an impact on your health and your whole body, because your whole body is listening to your thoughts.
hmm
I
Yeah,
guess.
and one of the best evidences of that is like when you have a really good thought, or you hear something really inspiring, or you hear a really good piece of music, and you get goosebumps all over your skin.
Mhm.
That one positive experience just impacted your entire body from head to toe. And sometimes you even feel like your muscles tingling a little bit too, depending on how intense it is, right?
Mm.
So exactly what you're saying.
And the opposite side too, like when you get stressed or panic about something, then your body all tenses up and
Yeah.
your blood pressure goes up, and because you're getting ready to run or fight.
Yeah. And actually, if not necessarily for this topic, but definitely if you want a rabbit hole to look into, there's different theories coming out about how our brain cells and even just all of our cells may have um, certain structures that allow for quantum experiences, so to speak. I don't know how to describe it, but that like our brains actually have microtubules that allow for there to be a quantum state. So we might actually be processing at a quantum level, not just at this. But it's all like relatively new. I don't know much about it. I don't know how much credence I give to it, but it's an interesting
Mhm.
thought to have that we could be thinking in many more dimensions than we know, and working in, and then this leads into like that whole idea of the energy you keep in your body and how it affects it, and all the different, and how you can put that energy out there. It's like, wow, this. So it could be like trying to take those theories and force it into science, or it's the science kind of meeting those theories out there. I don't know yet. I haven't researched it, but it is definitely an interesting idea to that I want to delve into more, because it goes even deeper into that idea you're talking about, that entire, like that one thing, and how your whole body just aligns with it and just will take that state. So yeah,
I love
clenched or relieved or whatever the case is.
I love that, George, and I love rabbit holes, and let's go there, man. So I got a question for you. Do you think, and I don't know if this is a theory or I heard this somewhere, do you think so? All the thoughts that are coming to us, are those thoughts ours in our head, or are those thoughts coming to us from the collective consciousness or whatever? I'm curious what your opinion is on that. And I'm kind of out there. I'm kind of in the belief that those thoughts are, our brain's like a computer and we're picking up like a radio wave. We're in tune with something. So I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead here and
Yeah,
say
yeah.
what I think is, I think that our level of consciousness dictates the thoughts that we're receiving,
hmm
is kind of what I've been thinking lately. So I'm really interested in this. So I'm curious to your thoughts on that.
So that is actually one of the ways, depending on if I can get people along that track, that's sometimes one of the ways that I try to help people understand how important they are to the collective. How, because some people are like, I'm not that important. Who am I important to? I'm not curing this disease, and I'm not out there fixing these major problems. It's like, no, no, we all have a purpose. I don't know what it is. There's something larger at play, because it's just the very thing. Even if we just talk about what we did know growing up about the body, how so many different things were happening internally. There's something beyond us here for sure at play in this universe. But the uniqueness of ourselves, of our experiences, and our energies gives us a different frequency, and then we resonate with certain things, and that's how like that's it's like that's my twist on what you were saying, where yeah, I believe there is, like, I don't know that it's an established knowledge, like there everything that could be known is known. I'm not saying that it's just you got to tune into the knowledge, but I feel like as things are evolving, there is definitely a current of evolution. There is a current of development, of reorganization of thoughts and energies, and w- we can, depending on our energy, tune into those different things and get those ideas. I believe that as well, that we're able to tap into that. Where people say, "Oh, I had a muse, and that muse brought me all this music, or was able to gave me the inspiration to generate this art and to paint." I'm a technical person, so I'm using the word generate, but to go and paint, or to write this program, it can fall into that as well. And it's just that whole idea that you're tuning your there's a lot of videos where they show you, if you take a tuning fork at 400
Mhm.
hertz, and you take a tuning fork at 414, you can make it wiggle, but it won't really do much. But if you have a 400 and a 400, you hit one, the other one's going to start singing too, if it's close enough. And that's
Mhm.
that whole idea, like, if you so you basically get what you're matched to, but because we're all so unique and different, we can bring a different part of that. And so yeah, some of us do bring in something that takes elevates us to a different status in society, but that's all it is. It just we our tuning works well for that. Even if all we do is just get up in the morning, walk our dog, say hi to the neighbor, and all of a sudden give a neighbor that positive experience, and then say, "Hey, by the way, I see you're doing this with your yard. Did you try? No, I don't know some." And all of a sudden, you give them a great idea, and you just help them improve. I don't know, the output of their garden. Like it seems menial, but it's like no, those are that. Like there's so much. It's this idea of co-creation essentially, and that goes down another big spiritual rabbit hole. But it's just this whole idea, like yeah, we bring in all these different ideas to be able to share them with each other because we can't know everything, but we are all extensions of everything. It's like, and if it, depending on your belief in your deities and so forth, but um, a lot of people say, "Oh, we come from this source, we come from this origin," and we're all from that. Yeah, exactly, and we're all extensions of that, and we get to tap into all the different possibilities. But we can't all do it all at once. It's not everything everywhere all at once. Like I think that was a movie that came out, but it's just we can only tune in so much, and that's what we're here for. We're here for that piece that we're able to bring to the world.
I love that. I love that. And I love what you said about the tuning into the collective, because I used to think like that too. Like, how can I, how can what I do have an impact in the world? And I used to think like what I do doesn't matter. I can't have a positive impact in the world. I can't have a negative impact in the world. Everything I do has no effect on anybody in the world. That's what it used to think. But now I have a totally different opinion on that. That one person can change the world. We are, whether it's through the collective consciousness or whether it's through the ripple effect of our kindness, saying hi to someone on the street, or people say that doing meditation, just raising your own vibration by doing meditation, will have an impact on the collective consciousness and raise the vibration of the collective. And so that does impact everything, just like something negative will have a negative impact on the collective, like something like war or something like that, keeping everyone in fear and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so that's very interesting. And yeah, the whole, I'm really intrigued with this whole like, thought thing kind of downloading. And one thing I thought of when you were talking is, there's this saying, the universe gives you, doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you are. So everyone's saying you have to be it before you can receive it. So that kind of is in line with what you're saying, that if you are, I'll just say negative, if you're thinking more negative, then you're attracting more negative stuff into your life. And if you choosing to be more positive, then you're going to attract more positive stuff into your life. And that's kind of fits in what you're saying, that you attract what you are. And, people say if you want to be successful or if you want to be this, you need to embody it before you're going to get it. And that's, a tricky thing for a lot of people. Like, how do I pretend that I have this thing that I don't have it? But I think it just comes down to, the feeling and the thoughts to kind of attract that, because our feelings and our thoughts have a vibration that goes out and it's going to attract in. So that's very interesting. And yeah, I love this topic, man. I love it.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a tie to mindfulness there, because if you're able to tune
Yeah.
into that whole mindfulness idea, then you can actually then tune into because it's like, okay, I'm tuning into mindfulness to tune out all these other thoughts and ideas. Well, then, but now you've given yourself this space where you can actually tune to ideas you'd like and things that you'd like, and then this whole idea of attracting it. And what I've started to understand more through my experience about, like, it's like what you were saying was definitely more from that more neutral aspect, but like in the business world, you might even hear fake it till you make it, like just believe it. And but it's like, what I try to tell people is, you don't have to necessarily fake it till you make it. You made it this far and you were able to be successful up to this point, not because, excuse me, you did everything that the manuals told you. You came up with ideas. You evolved. It's part of your work, right? Yeah. So how about you don't fake it till you make it? You don't hold the possibility. How about you just believe, I don't know yet, but I will. Hold that thought. Like, it's there. I can get it. So like when I try to take people into that space of how do I hold the thought of having it, it's like, just believe you're good. Like you had, and then so basically what I do is I just say, okay, Ted, give me a list of like your 10 greatest accomplishments, and we talk about them and try to understand different points, and then I just try to break them down. Like, well, so you came up with that idea on your own, or like we were talking about before, you tuned that in from the collective, the hive, the ether, so to speak. But you tuned that in. It was your energy that brought that in. So why can't your energy bring in something, why can't your energy bring in that other part? And that's that whole idea of sometimes people get exactly what they're looking for when they try to tune into it and manifest it, so to speak. And sometimes people get something, and that's where they say, like a lot of, I hear a lot from the world of manifestation and the secret and things like that. And they say this or something better. And that's the idea. It's like, so maybe you won't get exactly what you want, but maybe you'll find something better, or you'll find out what you wanted had a whole lot of negative impact, or a lot of negatives attached to it that were going to hurt you, and you didn't get it because you were just so focused on, I want to get this, but I want to be a nice person. Like you were tuning in those more positive vibes, that those vibes tuned out that possibility for you because it was going to hurt you, you know? And maybe you got hurt in other different ways, but it's nothing compared to what you were kept from. So it's just that whole idea of just trusting the process, and that, like you said, that good energy. It's been proven so many times, and everybody has that experience where somebody walks into the room and it just seems like the energy of the room calms down, and all they did was walk in, and they may
Mhm.
not even like smile at you. They could just walk in, be looking around, get what they need, but they have that demeanor. So there's definitely something there, like you said, to that energy that you have. That energy is, and then ripples out, and it's that ripple effect. And like you said, that collectiveness. So being in that mindful state, just kind of maybe, around your house, like if you're meditating in your house, maybe you're creating a pool of calm, and other people walking by are tuning into that calmness, and they're a little less edgy, for that day. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, those the possibilities are, I don't know. There's just so much that I feel like we still have to learn. But yeah, that's kind of where I go, where I start when we start talking about energies, and then how, yeah, just your positive energy can ripple out.
I love that. Yeah, and there is so much to learn. And just thinking back, reflecting back on my life there, just as you were talking, I have so much evidence to support this from my life. And to think about it, like the times where I was in a super negative mindset, the thoughts that I was getting were super negative, total different than the times where I'm, feeling great. And I could say it's the same day. I got to get up, go to work. I'm just going to give an example from my life. I wake up negatively. I don't want to go to work. I'm thinking negatively why I don't want to go to work. I'm dreading the day. I'm thinking about all the bad things that are going to happen. I'm thinking about why I don't want to go there. And then I could have the same day where I wake up in a positive mindset. I'm excited to go to work. I'm thinking about, all the people I'm going to see. It's the same day. I'm just looking at it differently. I'm having different thoughts about it. I'm excited for what possibilities are going to come up. And I think also too, when you're in that positive mindset, you're more open to opportunities, because when you're in that negative space, you're more closed off, and you either don't see the opportunities, or you don't give a shit because you don't care. You don't feel like it. But when you're in that opened up space, then there's possibilities everywhere, and you're looking for them. So
Mhm.
I can see the evidence there. I can see the evidence there for sure.
And you can see the evidence in any commercial you watch. I've my kids actually the other day were like, "Dad, you really turned us into skeptics." So I'm always talking about. They're like, "Oh, this commercial is so funny." I'm like, "You know why they make it funny is so that you remember it. So they have all that skepticism for it. So it's something I've always watched because I was also a couch potato as a kid, and that's another story. But you see the evidence right there, because that's exactly what they try to do. They try to give you something to smile about, laugh about, and then introduce your product, because they know that that's what opens you up to the possibility of, hey, maybe going with that product versus what you're used to buying, or used to subscribing to, or whatever it is. And that's exactly, it's baked into our psychology. So there's even more evidence, and so it's like that works in the practical world. Well, it can also be applied to this less practical world that we're talking about energies and mindsets and so forth.
I love that. So you're teaching your kids to be mindful of the propaganda in the commercials. That's amazing.
Yeah. And even, and it also, like, we don't watch much news in the house. We try to make sure, we have a few sources that we'll look into, and sometimes, opposing sources, so that we can try to just funnel to the truth on our own and things. But, sometimes they're in school now, they're doing current events. Oh, I heard this. I say, yeah, but hold on, that's true. And then I show them the other side. Look, so I'm teaching them also to be open and mindful to the other possibilities. I think that's another extension of mindfulness, is just being open to the other side of the conversation. And that sometimes it's like they're talking about it from this extreme, they're talking about it from that extreme, but at the middle is this one nugget. This is the thing. Everybody's worried about safety. Some people want to do it this way, some people want to do it that way. But, so that's what, and they get angry at each other. And that's why you have this article saying that the other side is, terrible because of XYZ. And so, yeah, I'm trying to bake in that mindfulness as well, just to allow for that whole sense of being whole and not getting divided by these ideals and thoughts, and being able to just be a part of the collective as well. Like, be an individual. You can still be an individual, but you can see what's going on, and then filter it to yourself, filter it to your energy, tune it into you, how you want to take that information and make it work for you.
I love that. And your kids are so lucky to, have you teaching them this stuff. And I think that's looking at things from different perspectives. And I'm like working on teaching this to my kids too. But I think looking at things from different perspectives is one of the most powerful practices that you can do in life,
Hmm.
from anything, whether it's at work or, I've been doing that a lot, just trying to look at things from my kids' perspective, and that's helped me a lot with parenting too. Because I'll say to my wife, "Well, look at it from their perspective. They're doing this, and we're coming in and saying this, and yeah, I'd be upset too." So
Yep.
I think it's very, very beneficial to be mindful of all the perspectives in any situation that's going on.
Yeah, and that's, I think right there, that's one of the big nuggets that I try to convey to, even, when I'm talking to people who are going to be new parents, or people who are having trouble with their kids. Exactly what you just said. Trying to look at it from their perspective gives you that idea, so that you have that understanding. But the key to all this, and I can hear it but I want to like explicitly say this too. The key to all this is that you take in the information. It doesn't mean all of a sudden you're sympathetic 100% to that. It's just that you've taken that into consideration, but you still can be yourself. You can still have your views and still understand things the way you do, and be able to just understand it, and then use that in discussing your point of view, which may oppose or not 100% align. But then you can have that thoughtful conversation with people, and you can have that thoughtful reaction. So, like, you still have to parent your kids. You can understand where they're coming from, but just because it's justifiable that at their age, their level of development, their response to situation X is to throw a hissy fit and like start tossing toys around and whack you in the head. Okay, you understand it completely, but you're still going to say, no, 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 no. And you're going to
Mhm.
do what you have to do. And you'll find your mindful way of doing it. One way that we used to do is be like, wow, okay, you've got a lot of emotion. Sit on your bed, do not get off your bed, let it all out. When you're ready, you can come talk to us. This was at a particular age. And literally, my daughter would be up there crying, screaming, saying all kinds of things. And then she'd open the door, Dad, I'm ready. And then we deal with it, but that's how I was able, like, that's how we worked it, like, that's how our personality. So, like, that's one way to do it. But that's that whole idea, is being able to understand and be like, okay, well, but I have to make sure she understands she passed the boundary. She can't be hitting people just because she didn't get the piece of candy today that she was able to get yesterday. There's a reason for that. She's not hearing me right now. So, deal with that situation. And it just, I feel like that's where it opens up into that whole idea of, you know what the woke movement was supposed to be, so to speak. Like, that whole idea of woke wasn't, it's not supposed to just be, oh, I completely understand it, because I understand, I accept it wholeheartedly. No, I feel like it's just wake up to the fact that there are other points of view, but you can still be yourself. And I feel like that's the importance of, like, why. So I mentioned I have a black belt in Taekwondo. I got it, but my kids started Taekwondo first, and then the master was like, "Hey, George, why don't you come in?" And but the value of learning to defend yourself and to spar with people who you play with, When you're training, you guys are hanging out, talking, chit-chatting, playing with sometimes, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you got to go beat him. And being able to be aggressive and try to really get the hits, get the points, and then at the end of the day, be like, whether you win or lose, just feel like, hey, yeah, and you sit back down while somebody else is having their sparring match, and you guys are chatting it up again and laughing anyway. So it's like that whole idea of being able to be opposed to each other, but still being able to be around each other. And I
Mhm.
feel like mindfulness allows for that as well. And depending on the even the martial arts instructor, I feel very strongly actually about that whole idea of that physical defense and also that being able to still have that mental defense, but having the mindfulness to be able to know exactly what you're dealing with, to have a better strategy other than I'm gonna come out fighting and the stronger fighter wins. You don't have to rely on, just that element. There's a lot of elements that you can use if you're mindful.
I love that. And when I worked in the kitchen, we had a similar sort of thing where, I don't know if you ever seen Gordon Ramsay, but that's kind of what it's like in the kitchens I worked at. So like during dinner service, it's like wild and crazy. People are getting yelled at and people are crying and all the things are happening. But when it's done, it's done. And then you're down at the pub and you're having a beer. And an hour ago, chef was screaming at you and throwing your protein against the wall and telling you can't cook. And then, now you're there having a beer and it's all over. So, you just brought me back to that, George. Great analogy. All right, brother. Well, we're getting close to the end of our time here, man. This is a great conversation. It went by pretty fast for me. I feel like every time we talk, we could just talk for hours and hours and just go off, which I love that. I love that so much. But before we wrap things up, man, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners? Is there anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to maybe add?
Um, I guess I think I've said it in a lot of different ways, but it's like one of the things that I like to close with on a lot of the content I create on on the different platforms, and it's just the whole idea of giving yourself space to be yourself. It's like, okay, but not in a mindful way. It's like you're human. You're going to make mistakes. We were just talking about how, oh, I've done all this mindful work, but I still get upset at my kids, and I still do this. Yeah, of course, because we're still human. If we were meant to be perfect, we wouldn't have problems. We wouldn't have them. They wouldn't exist to be around. So there's something there. So just give yourself a break. It doesn't make you a terrible person. You're just a person. And then the quality of your person is where it's the attention you give yourself that will allow you to develop into the quality of person you want to be. So that I think that would be the biggest message that I'd like to convey is that you don't have to be the best person in any particular situation. Just be the best you can be and want to be.
Mhm.
And that will, I feel like that'll just open up so much for you in dealing with stress and dealing with life and moving ahead in your life.
That's beautiful, man. And they remind me. I heard someone say once that if life was easy, it would be boring. And we need challenges in our lives in order to grow. So I think being mindful of that life comes with challenges, and we need those challenges in order to grow and to evolve. So without those challenges, what would we be doing?
That's
So
right.
awesome, brother. Awesome, George. Amazing. And where can people find you if they'd like to connect with you?
So, I in general on most of the platforms I have my handle is GL Life Coaching, and that is at Yahoo. Yeah, that's at Gmail. It is my email handle on Instagram and TikTok. I also have a YouTube channel, but that I couldn't get that exact title, but you can link from those. So, Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, GL Life Coaching, all one word. That's where I have my content and I can be reached, and at gmail.com if you need any, if you want to get in touch.
Awesome, brother. And for everyone listening, I'll include George's information in the show notes below for anyone that wants to reach out to him. Awesome, man. That was great, George. Thank you so much for joining us today, man. That was awesome.
Thank you, Jason. I always appreciate the opportunity to have a really cool conversation, and that it might serve somebody is awesome.
Yeah, brother. And keep in touch for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. And for everyone listening, I already said that. I'll include George's information in the show notes below. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at transformative_pathways. You can also find my link tree in the show notes below, where you'll find the links to all my social media, my email list, my private community, and options to book a free consultation or apply to my one-on-one coaching programs. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it if you could like, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite listening platform. And if you'd like the show, we'd be so grateful if you take a moment to leave a review. It would mean so much to us and also help the show reach more listeners. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.
This has been the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Dobie. Tune in each week for more insights, inspiring stories, and transformative journeys. Until then, keep exploring the path to keep your best self. Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.